It is my great pleasure today to welcome Myra McGovern, who is the Vice President of Media for the National Association of Independent Schools. Thank you so much for joining with us today, Myra. And Myra is going to be commenting and sharing wisdom from the larger field of independent schools to provide some perspective on the new report about heads of schools that is just being released.
The National Association of Independent Schools represents 1,500 member schools in the U.S. and about 1,800 organizations, both associations of independent schools and international schools, plus the national member schools, the U.S.-based member schools. So we do have this broad brushstroke view of the independent school landscape. So one of the things that struck me from the RAVSAK report was just how many similarities there are between Jewish day schools and the larger independent school universe. Many of the trends that you noted in headship and other leadership positions played out in the national landscape as well. The salaries for RAVSAK schools were slightly lower than the national averages. But as you note in the report, many of your schools are elementary-only schools. So one of the trends that we notice among our national statistics is that the heads of elementary schools and also small schools tend to earn a little bit less than heads of large schools or elementary to secondary schools or just secondary schools. So one of the things that you highlighted in the report was that the average salary of heads in RAVSAK schools nationally is $161,000 a year. And that compares to a median of $220,000 for heads nationally in all NAIS schools. And that was for the 2013-14 school year. I tried to get them so that they would be a little bit more comparable. Now, among heads of elementary schools, however, the average salary was $189,000 per year in that school year. And for heads of schools with under 200 students, the average salary was $186,623 per year. So the RAVSAK salaries are really are quite comparable. The other thing that I noticed that really stood out to me was that RAVSAK schools have a much larger number of, or a slightly larger number of female heads of school. It's one of the things that we have actually struggled with on the national level, ways to increase the number of women in the leadership pipeline. So among NAIS schools nationally, 66.4% of heads of school are men. And among RAVSAK schools, it was 54% are women. Only 18% of heads of high schools in the RAVSAK membership are women. And so that shows that there's some room for improvement.
Great, thank you. In terms of benefits, did anything jump out at you there?
One of the things that I highlighted in looking at the NAIS statistics is that almost all schools within the NAIS membership contribute to employee health and life insurance benefits. One of the interesting things among NAIS schools is just how many schools offer housing benefits to their heads of school. So 29.6% of heads at day schools nationally at NAIS schools had full housing benefits, and 14.4% had partial housing benefits. So that's a really substantial benefit if you consider particularly the places that independent schools tend to be located, which are largely very expensive, high cost of living cities. So that might be a slight difference among your membership.
As we close, is there any final word of advice or anything else that struck you from the report that you want to share with our field?
Sure. One other thing that stood out to me, it's actually coming from NAIS research, and that is that according to our research, the pool of heads of school currently is aging. A 2009 report found that 68% of current heads plan to retire or change jobs within 10 years. So that's a huge amount of turnover that we can expect. You know, many heads of schools deferred retirement due in large part to the recession, just as people nearing retirement age did in all different industries. So now we have essentially a bottleneck of heads who are ready to retire. So I really urge schools to think intentionally about developing leadership capacity within their own schools, and to think also about different ways to help their schools reach out into the broader community, so that when those head transitions come, that they'll have those connections with many different community groups or other individuals who may be interested in and knowledgeable about the organization, so that they could come in and again be that good match to help the school move forward.